do you mean pretend girlfriend? It sounds like y'all are already a little serious. Y'all know I exaggerate a lot. I don't know what I mean by that. Hey, welcome back to my channel. Guess what I have today? An author taste test. Specifically, Julie Tieu. Ciao. I hope I did not mispronounce her last name. I was at the library probably a month ago because this is my second time renewing the books and I'm finally getting around to them, and I was just browsing in the romance section. I don't normally browse in the romance section. Honestly, I don't really browse in the adult section, period, because for some reason I'm never familiar with the spines of the books. It's not as fun as browsing the young adult section because for some reason, I don't know if it's just being promoted so much on my page or what, but I know so many, young adult books, not so much adult books. I was browsing and I came across these two books, Circling Back to You and Fancy Meeting You Here. When I saw this, when I was like, wait, why have I not read this yet? And then I realized back, I guess last year, when we were boycotting HarperCollins, this is a HarperCollins title, specifically Avon. So that's why I hadn't read it yet. That boycott has since been over for, I don't think it's been a year, but it's been months. I have started Circling Back to You as my first one. I thought this was her debut, but I don't think it is. And I'm actually already 182 pages in. I'm getting through it really quickly. I read about 50 pages with my eyes, and then I've since listened to the rest of it. I'm planning on, because I only have this much left. I'm honestly planning on just finishing it, physically. I have some thoughts. I guess this is a rom-com. I know it's a contemporary romance. This is how my brain works. I always say not all rom-coms have animated covers or cartoon covers, but I always feel like all cartoon covered romances or animated covered romances are rom-coms. I mean, can it be contemporary romance and rom-com at the same time? See, I just be reading. I don't know nothing about genres, subgenres. I just be talking out the side of my neck. This is a workplace romance. We have Cadence and Matt, and they both work in realty? I've never said that word out loud. They're not realtors though. I think Cadence is more on the analytical side. They both might be because they both work side by side. Both their cubicles are next to each other. I'm assuming Cadence is Chinese American because the author, it says, is Chinese American. But I know for a fact Matt is Filipino and they're in their 30s. She is 31 and I believe he said he's like 34 or something. One of the things that really threw me when I started the book is that we actually just dive in. And I was like, wait, am I missing something? Is there another book? Because of the way that we dove into the story, I felt like I was missing some information. I think it's just the way that she wrote it. Oh, it says that they're part of the sales team. I was gonna go over plot. However, that's one of my biggest issues. When I first started the book, I didn't read the synopsis. The synopsis, in my opinion, does not match with what I've been reading. Mind you, I'm 182 pages in. That's, if I'm looking directly at it, that's probably 51%. One of the main things in the synopsis that it says is their relationship takes a turn when a business trip lands them both in their hometown, and Matt enlists Cadence as a pretend girlfriend for a family gathering. I'm 182 pages in. We have not even gotten to that family gathering. I thought after I read the synopsis, after I had already started reading it, I'm like, oh, I kept anticipating when this would happen, and it still hasn't happened yet. So that I do have a problem with because I hate when the synopsis doesn't line up with the plot of the book. So far, what we've been reading is really just romance, if that makes sense. And actually, what do you mean pretend girlfriend? It sounds like y'all are already a little serious. They both have different issues that they're dealing with. So one of the reasons why Matt, I guess, is gonna enlist Cadence as a pretend girlfriend is because his family, is kind of pushing for him to be like, when are you gonna settle down? Cadence, on the other hand, her dad is elderly and she doesn't live, home. Yeah, because they work in San Francisco and I guess they go to LA. because where I'm at now, they are on the business trip, finally. Her dad is elderly, and she does have a brother, Tristan, I believe, who lives at home with like his girlfriend, but they're kind of ready to move on. But the dad is elderly. It doesn't sound like they're gonna put him into any kind of home. Y'all know what I'm trying to say. I feel like down the line, that's gonna be something that we're gonna see her kind of juggle in her head, because she already doesn't have that great of a relationship with her dad, it seems. So far it's going okay, but I think because the synopsis is just not matching, it's definitely throwing me off. It is funny, not rom-com funny though, but still, I like this. I like the kind of humor that it does have in it. They've already had sex. Yeah, they've already that I was like, oh. I am back from work. Let's get into it. If y'all see me do this, my iPad is there and I have it on the battery save mode or whatever, and my notes are there. Take this out. I ended up finishing it as an audiobook. I had maybe, I think, an hour and a half left to finish, which is probably like 80 pages. I would not have been mad if I had bought this book, because I would have had tabs, maybe not as much as, you know, some romances, but I know that my tabs would not have gone to waste. With that being said, I'm gonna give this a 4-star. I found out what Matt's job is. He's a broker. Don't ask me what it means. I have no idea what a broker is. I've heard the word. One of the things that I failed to mention, or at least add on, because I did say that we jump right into the story, but one thing that I failed to mention was that, and this, I don't know what that says about me, but it threw me off whenever I found out that Matt and Cadence mutually like each other. It's not a hate relationship. It's not an enemies to lovers or rivals. They mutually have crushes on each other. I guess I'm just not used to reading these types of romances when they're either not strangers or they're not like enemies. Like, they're friends. They've been working with each other for years. They mutually like each other. Sometimes, you know, there were a couple of moments at the beginning or something where she got snippy with him, but, you know, there was nothing much to it. There are 2 sex scenes if you care about that. I didn't mind it because they weren't dragged out. They were 2 short scenes. I think the first one was a little more detailed than the second one. I believe the second scene ends a little abruptly, like almost not closed door, because we do get a little detail, but fade to black. So I didn't mind that. The conflict was a little and when I say a little I don't mean that, I don't know what I mean by that. It wasn't awful. I just hated the conflict. I hated how one of the characters went about something. It ends up obviously fixing itself. I just wasn't too happy with it. I don't think that the other, I mean, one of the characters was understanding. They knew where the other person was coming from. I just am also on the other character side, because it's like, why did you do it anyway? But yeah, it wasn't so bad. I mean, if you read it and you're like, girl, what are you talking about? Like, this wasn't bad. This is just me. It's just me. Y'all know I exaggerate a lot. The elderly. Love the elderly. There's 2 old people in here. And I actually have been wanting to make a post about books that have funny side characters. And those funny side characters are on 2 separate ends. You have the young kids, the babies that are super funny. And then you have the elderly, you know, 80 plus or 70 plus or 60 plus, you know, that are so funny. We have Lola or something, or that's what he calls his grandma. I think that's how you say it in his language. You have Matt's grandma and Cadence's dad. I will say we don't get their ages. I think that the way that Cadence's dad is written, he's written a lot older than I think he is. I feel like he's in the same generation or whatever age group as Matt's grandma, but that's his grandma and that's her dad. So I don't, and they're around the same age. I mean, obviously that doesn't matter, because compared to my peers, my parents are on the older side, baby boomers, younger baby boomers, whatever. So that really shouldn't matter. But that, I was kind of like, ooh. But he was so funny. His grandma too. But towards the end, we got a little more of Cadence's dad, because it's a closer relationship than him with his grandma or whatever. The main reason why I'm going to give this a 4-star, the synopsis. The party that they talk about them pretending to date just did not match in my opinion. And it ruined it because I went into the book blind, and then at some point, like maybe 50 pages, and I'm like, you know what, I'm gonna read the synopsis. Big mistake. I should not have read the synopsis because it just overall ruined it for me. Hopefully I didn't forget anything. If not, I'll come back at some point, maybe write it down again. I will be jumping into the next book, Fancy Meeting You Here. Normally in these videos, I read all kinds of different things. I don't normally read these in order. I think I do want to jump into this one next because I do work a full day tomorrow. This book is short. It's 288 pages. I have the audiobook. I should be able to finish this pretty quickly. I don't think this is a part of a series, interconnected or not. These are two separate books, two standalones from my knowledge. Oh, where's this? Oh, hello. I don't know if the sun is going to come back anytime soon. I have no idea what this is about, but they kind of look alike. The characters... No, she looks different than this character. Anyway, the back does say that this is an opposites attract. You have in Always the bridesmaid florist and a grumpy caterer. Mixing business. Oh! I think I'm going to eat this one up too. This one was good, but I think this one might be better. I read probably about the same amount as I did the other book. About 60 pages with my eyes. I listened to a bunch of the audiobook, and then I ended up stopping on chapter 18, page 178. I probably have about 100 pages left. Okay, so I think I got a little ahead of myself. So this is about Elise. She owns a flower shop. She caters a bunch of different events, doing like floral arrangements, but specifically she does a lot of weddings. And the first wedding that we're at the beginning of this book is her best friend, or one of her best friends, named Rebecca. At the beginning, she ends up meeting Ben, who is a chef. I don't remember what he was even doing there. Was he cooking or what? But he's the younger brother of Rebecca. So Elise is 28 and Ben is 27. So just a year difference, and maybe not even a year depending on the month. From there, we learn that he's kind of a grump. That's kind of like the opposites attract. He's kind of grumpy, but he ends up hiring her to work on his mom's campaign, doing the floral arrangements. It does not go well, but that's kind of everything. I mean, they are spending time together because there's another wedding that they're attending, and then another wedding. And actually on the back, it does say swoony romantic comedy in the vein of 27 Dresses. I know that that's a movie. I've never seen it. So I'm curious how similar this book is to 27 Dresses. But that is one of my issues. At first, when I first began it, I thought for sure I was enjoying it more than the other book that I read. However, we focus a lot, too much in my opinion, on the weddings. We're at a wedding at the beginning of the book. I'm at a part where they had another friend in the friend group who just had a wedding, and then there's another friend who ends up getting engaged and asks Elise to help plan her wedding and I think be the maid of honor. To me, it's like she is spending time with Ben, but even the time that they're spending, we're focusing on the wedding. And I don't know if it's because I was listening to the audiobook and maybe I missed something, but when they finally do get together, I feel like I was missing a piece because I had been reading about them connecting and hanging out. I missed a little piece that connected the puzzle together, like them before getting together, like just them getting to know each other, and then them all of a sudden being together. I missed the little piece that conjoins both. I am liking them together, and I think that I don't know what rating I'm gonna give it, which I'm not done, and I also don't know if I'm enjoying it as much as the other book to where I would give it the same rating, or would I give it something a little lower. Honestly, thinking about it, I don't think I would give it a little lower than the other book. In fact, I would probably give it a little higher, like maybe a 4.25, because the thing that I am liking in this one more than the other one is the romance. Even though I feel like we could get a little bit more, which where I'm at, we are getting more into it, but the book already isn't that long. I think the romance in here between Ben and Elise is better than between the other two characters. One thing that I do appreciate about this author is that not only do we jump into the story, within the first 3 chapters, we get the first interactions between the love interests. I've read books where it's a romance, but there's so much like world building or trying to set up the story that we don't get into the first interactions between the love interest until like chapter 5, you know, chapter 8, like somewhere well into like 50 pages. And in the other book, I think we meet them in chapter 1, and in this one I believe they meet in chapter 2 or chapter 1. So I do like that. This is part 2 of filming this clip. I filmed the first clip, and the sunscreen that I wear leaves a white cast unless I rinse my hands, dry them, and mix it in again. And apparently when I did that, I didn't do a good job. I hope it's not too obvious right now. It's been a couple of hours, probably about an hour and a half, 2 hours. It was just too obvious. I couldn't keep the clip in. I also don't have the book anymore because I returned it to the library today. Starting with this video, I'm gonna implement my new rating scale. I mentioned it in another video. I just don't know if I'm going to say this every single time. Instead of giving it something specific, I'm gonna give it a range. So like this was a 4 to 5 star, 1 to 2. Every book that I've been reading now for the past few months, and not even month, I think the past year, that's kind of what makes more sense to me. And I think these 2 books are the perfect example. I know I already gave the first book a specific rating, and I will still give it a specific rating, but I think the purpose of these videos I won't. But I still have my story graph. What is that? Okay, I got it. Piece of, I don't even know. It's not hair. I would give both of these books the same rating. I just don't know exactly what that is now. I don't know if I'm going to keep that 4 star or if I'm going to give them both like a 3.75 on Storycraft. But in general, I would put it in between a 3 and a 4 star. So this is what it's now going to look like at the bottom. I think with this book, again, she mentions on the back of the book 27 dresses. I've already mentioned I've never seen that movie, but I assume it's focusing on more than one character. We were doing too much in this book. We had a romance, we had the weddings, we had her flower shop, you know, her flower studio, excuse me. It's not a shop, it's a studio. And then we had, you know, the friendship. And it was just so much going on. I feel like they were all battling to be in the spotlight, which made no sense to me because I thought this was a romance. So the romance should have been in the spotlight, and it just wasn't, in my opinion. I did like the romance more than in the first book. What I would have loved better is if she went the route of, the only movie that comes to mind is the Valentine's Day movie. I know there's multiple movies that do this, but the Valentine's Day one, I think I've seen it once in its entirety, and maybe not, but the one with both Taylors. But it focuses on different characters, but they all kind of have a connection unknowingly. I think she should have went that route. I have read a book that does that. I think it's Intermission by Phyllis R. Dixon. It was focusing on a R&B girl group, and I think it was like 5 or 4 members. I want to say it was 5, and we focused on each of them, and then they had something together. I think we should have done that with this book. However, that would have affected the length because that would have made it longer. And then obviously like the overall synopsis on the back would have had to have changed. As a reader, I would have loved that a lot more than what we got because it was just too short. It was like 284 pages to be trying to get through all of that, but then at the same time it's supposed to be focusing on that romance. Overall, would I reread this author because this is an author taste test? I would. I just don't know if I would read her books back to back. I know I have one other book of hers to read. She already doesn't have that many. I think her debut is all I have left to read. I think that one's called The Donut Shop, and I believe we revisit the 2 main characters from The Donut Shop in this book, I think, because they mentioned a couple and they mentioned like a donut shop. I'm assuming that's the same people from the first book. This is not a series. I know I keep talking about both books. The first one that I read in here and this one I just can't help but try and compare them because this is the same author, and that was kind of the purpose of this video. Overall, I'd probably give her like a C+, a B. I'd probably say a B- if I had to grade her as an author. That's it for today's video. I hope you enjoyed. I have some other author taste tests that I'm thinking about doing. If you reached the end of this video, comment down below your favorite flower emoji, because the second book focused on her flower studio and there's a bunch of different flowers on the cover. And I'll see you next week. Bye!